Howard Beck, senior NBA reporter of Bleacher Report, joining us here on the Where in the World is Derrick Rose search. Good to chat with you, Howard. It's been a while.
Yeah, how are you, Rich?
I'm doing fine. So Derrick Rose spoke today, huh?
He spoke today up at the Knicks practice facility, and it seems that they have straightened things out to the extent that anything is ever straightened out in the Knicks world. Rose says he went home because of some family concerns, I think dealing with his concerning his mom. And, you know, the issue here, of course, is not that Derrick Rose had to attend to a family matter. This happens over the course of a season, and sometimes players and even coaches have to go. But he didn't notify the team ahead of time. He didn't notify them during. He didn't notify them after. He wasn't in contact with anyone until after the game was over last night. And so it left the franchise in the lurch with no explanations to offer the public, with no understanding of what was going on. So, you know, that's the issue here is, you know, whatever was going on at home, that's for Derrick Rose and his family to, you know, for them to discuss. So, you know, we don't necessarily need to know all the details, and I think you give him the benefit of the doubt. But a veteran who's, you know, been in the league for as long as he has to know there is a time or not, excuse me, time, but it is a way to handle these things properly, and he did not do so, and that's why they have fined him. But other than that, it's back to normal.
But in terms of finding a guy that has a nice chunk of change at home as opposed to suspending him, I mean, what's to prevent anybody from the Knicks just going dark and leaving the Knicks to wonder where they are?
Well, I think the issue there is, you know, is this mitigated in part by the reasons that he was absent and just his state of mind? Maybe, you know, they're giving him benefit of the doubt as to, you know, why he didn't call, that maybe he was so rattled or so, you know, concerned with what was going on back in Chicago that it just didn't have, you know, he just wasn't in the right frame of mind. I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating a little bit. Maybe that's the mitigating factor. Maybe you don't want to come down too hard on a guy who's going through whatever he's going through with his family. But, you know, it's a fair question, you know, what happens when the next guy just bails out. But, you know, I'll tell you, Rich, this is a very rare circumstance. When I was at the arena, I was at the Garden last night, and, you know, in my 20 seasons covering the league, I don't remember this ever happening, where someone just doesn't show up and no one has no idea where he is. You know, there have been times before where a guy was late, guy's stuck in traffic, something else comes up, but not with just complete absence of information provided to the team. Well,
I mean, we started this show off with Aaron Rodgers called into the show, and everybody wrote them off at 4-6. Now look where they are. They've won 7 in a row. They're a red-hot team with championship hopes. So I'm loath to say this, ask this question, but can we now at 17-21 figure that this is not working out, that Derrick Rose is a bad fit in New York? It's just a bad move?
I think it depends on how you want to assess it. You know, is this working out as well as anybody, I think, hoped? Of course not. You know, they didn't expect to be 4 games under 500 at this stage. On the other hand, look, they're 2 games out of the playoffs because the East, as per usual, is just rife with mediocrity. And so, you know, look, the Knicks they are as good a bet to make the playoffs right now as, say, the Wizards, who are in the 8th spot right now, or the Bulls, who are at the 7th spot, both of those teams with 500 records. Between those teams and the Knicks are Detroit and Milwaukee. All of these teams have flaws, and there's, you know, really, you know, nothing to say that the Knicks can't get on a good streak. And it doesn't even take much. It's because the rest of these teams aren't that great either. So, you know, this wasn't the greatest gambit in the world. The Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah offseason is not proving to be what, you know, a long-term or even a great short-term solution for the Knicks. But if the goal was to make the playoffs this season, that's still in their sights, and I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, but why should that be a goal? I mean, you got LeBron. No, I'm serious. Yeah. The goal is beating LeBron if you're in the East. Yeah. And if you're out in the West, the goal is to beat Golden State. And the goal for Golden State and the Cavs is the goal that every team in the NBA should be walking into a season with. Certainly if Phil's got 11 rings and has a talent like Carmelo at his disposal, that shouldn't be the goal. And then I'm wondering how in the world, where do the Knicks go from here right now, Howard?
No, totally fair questions, Rich. And look, there's 2 points I would make real quick. One, the Knicks have never been one for long-term planning. It's not in their it's not in their DNA as a franchise to plan for the long term. So the short term was simply, I think, to prop themselves up again and try to be competitive until Kristaps Porzingis is ready to be the superstar that it looks like he will be. Because in the meantime, Carmelo Anthony's not a superstar anymore. He's having his worst season statistically, really, of his career. If you're looking at things like field goal percentage and his efficiency, he's down right now. And I don't think that Carmelo is leading these guys anywhere right now. The Knicks were not going to be challenging LeBron James anyway. That's the thing with the NBA, this in particular, and recently for sure. It's a two-team race. It's the Warriors in the West and the Cavs in the East. And unless one of those teams has a catastrophic injury, it's hard to see anybody knocking them out. So the Knicks' goal can't be knocking off LeBron because it's not realistic. What their goal should be is where are they in a couple of years when LeBron is really in his twilight, and are they ready to start contending then? And what they've done for this season, you can fairly say was not done with a 2, 3, or 5 year plan in mind. It was all about the present. And their best case scenario was to get knocked out in the first round, which is still probably the best case scenario.
All right, Howard. I mean, and then Phil Jackson, has he spoken at all on this?
Not to my knowledge. He's been a hermit ever since he arrived in New York. He's been a hermit, and it's unfortunate. And certainly in a situation like this, he should be out front speaking to the issue.
Well, and the question is, does he want to be? I mean, in all honesty, I mean, does he want to do this? I mean, deep down, I mean, what is he thinking right now? Best you can tell.
No, he wanted the job. He wants to do this, and he wants to be the one to turn around the Knicks. I believe that absolutely. I think he was genuine and remains genuine in that goal. He doesn't want to deal with all the other stuff, though. Like dealing with the New York media or dealing with the media at all, not something he wants to do anymore. And they've got others that they can put out front. They could put Steve Mills, who's the general manager, and he hasn't spoken either, to my knowledge, publicly on this. Jeff Hornacek, unfortunately, has been out front having to take a lot of these situations on himself as head coach because the front office has been invisible. I'll tell you, Rich, that's been the case with the Knicks for most of the time that I've been around this team for the last dozen years. Aside from Donnie Walsh in the brief period he was here, Knicks front office types generally hide.
Last one, front-loaded for me. Trade deadline approaches. What's the conversation regarding Carmelo, who I know has the no-trade clause? But what do you think? What do you think? Front-loaded.
I just still can't see it happening. I can't see Carmelo Anthony going to them and saying, "Go ahead and trade me. I'll waive my no-trade clause."
What if it's
only a couple teams he would even consider?
Clippers? He's not going to go to the Cavs. I assume he's not. That there's no chance that Phil does that. Especially
not the Cavs. No, not a chance. That's one place he would maybe go because he could play with LeBron.
Right.
I can't see a deal to be had that. The Clippers, possibly. But, I still don't see Carmelo Anthony welcoming a move out of New York. I think he wants to stick it out here. But, he's got to have a breaking point. Everybody does.
Howard, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
You got it, Rich. Thank you.
You got it.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.